Have you ever wanted to get into Eurorack modulars?
No.
The first thing you're going to need is a case. You're going to need something to put all those
You haven't
modules in.
sold me on the modular yet. Don't tell me about getting a fucking case. Fuck off.
So first thing you're going to need is a rail. If you're going to build a case, I would recommend figuring out what size rail you want first in terms of length, so that way you know what your measurements are going to be. So the two measurements used for the rail sizes, you have the U, which stands for rack unit, and then you have HP, or horizontal pitch. Now standard Eurorack size would be 3U, so you want to look for 3U. If you're looking for a case that already has rails built into it, make sure that the amount of rails that are in it are divisible by 3. So for example, if it has 3 tiers of rails, then it means that the case as a whole is going to be 9U. Or if it has 2 tiers to it, or 2 rails, 2 sets of rails, then it's going to be a 6U case. There are other sizes of modules. So for example, the Moog standard is 5U. You may have seen these modules on websites like synthesizers.com. If you're sticking just to Eurorack, you want to avoid these because they will not fit in a Eurorack rail, and also they're the wrong voltages. They work with a different voltage. I think it's plus 15 and negative 15, where Eurorack runs in plus 12 and negative 12. The power supply that comes with this kit should supply around about 168 HP, which would be, if you had 2 of these 84 HP racks, it should last you then. I'll get into more about like converting the power supply if you want to expand on your rack. Everything that's comes included in the kit, Tiptop Audio sells it individually. So for example, if you wanted to buy another set of rails without the power supply, you can do that. Or if you need a part replaced, you can buy all these parts individually. The kit comes with these parts called Z-ears. That's what Tiptop calls them. They're designed for, they fit onto the rails, they hold the rack together, and they also allow the rack to stand on its own. So you don't even have to put this thing in a case. You can just use it as is, which is another reason why I would recommend this to beginners, is that if you can't afford a case, or you'd rather, or you're just beginning, so you want to spend, a bit more money just getting started on some of the more basic modules, then it gives you a little bit of extra money to play around with, and you can just build a case or buy a case later on. So these ears also allow you to use it in any rack mount, and they take M4 screws, which is pretty standard for a rack mount. I think they're meant to be universal. Okay, so how I built my Eurorack case, I built it out of a nightstand from Ikea. It was about $15 Australian. So now you have your Tiptop happy ending kit, and you've got, I hate that they call it the happy ending kit, that sounds so lame. So now we've got the Tiptop happy ending kit, we'll just call it the heck for now. And you've also got your Ikea Rast nightstand. So the first step is just to build the nightstand. And as soon as you put your kit in there, you'll notice that it is the nightstand is like the perfect width to fit it. You'll notice there is a little bit of a gap either side of the kit, but that's reserved for your rails that you're going to be mounting those ears to. So at this point you can stop. You don't even have to saw it in half if you don't want to. That's really just to make it more manageable. So if you're going to be sawing the shelf in half, don't do it directly in half, because you don't want to saw through that metal screw, because you want to keep that intact for some extra support. So you only want to be cutting off just far enough that you lose, one of your screw holes. So after this step, whether you've sawed it or not, you can choose whether you want to stain it and varnish it. It's not that laminate stuff that IKEA usually sell, so it will absorb the varnish or the stain pretty well. It's probably a good idea to do it at this point before you go any further. Get a few coats on it and let it sit and completely dry before moving on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is drilling the mount for the rack into the sides of your case. So you want to be using a 6U rack mount. It doesn't really matter what it's for, like studio effects or a server mount. It doesn't really matter. They should all be the same size, but I would recommend going with a rack mount that's specifically made for for studio gear. So then it's just a matter of working out how far you want them from the lip or the edge of the case, and just screwing them in using wood screws. Make sure you get a size that is shorter than the actual width of the case, so that you don't just end up drilling all the way through it. Now, the reason why you would want to recess the rails a little bit is just to protect the knobs on the modules. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's just for a bit of protection. Some people think it looks better to not do that. But you will notice after attaching the rack mount that there is well and truly enough room for another rack on there, so you can essentially make this a 6U case if you want. So the next thing you want to be doing is mounting your power supply. The one that comes with the kit should supply enough power to a 6U case, so if you want to put in an extra rack, it should well and truly be enough power for that. Although what you may have to look into is getting an extension for the ribbon cable. Again, you can buy these from any supplier that sells Tiptop audio parts, and they just plug straight onto the ribbon cable. The power supply that comes with the Tiptop audio kit, it's rated for 1000 mAh with the current AC plug that comes with it as well. It can be upgraded to a 2000 mAh if you upgrade the AC plug. The 1000 mAh should supply power to a 6U case, which is what we're going for today. So the screws that you're going to be using to attach your power supply to the frame or the rail are going to be 2M screws. Unless you're buying a module secondhand, then generally they will come with their own screws, so you don't need to worry about that. So I've gone out of my way to buy hex nut screws, which you can pick up on eBay. They're super cheap. I just like all my screws being the same, and also I think the hex nuts look a little bit better. So the next thing, whenever you're attaching a module to the power supply, you want to make sure that the red stripes on the ribbon cable match up. If you don't do this, you could risk damaging your module, and it goes the same for extensions. The power supply that comes with the kit has enough slots on it to connect 10 modules, but if you're finding that you need any more than that, from Tiptop Audio you can buy extensions which clip in the same way that other modules do. So you just attach it to the end and it'll give you an extra 5 slots. So lastly, this is just a little extra thing you might want to add. With modulars, you're going to be needing a lot of cables. So if you just go to your hardware supply store and pick up like a coat hook, you can just drill that onto the side of the case and use that to hold all your cables. So a website I would recommend to anyone getting into modulars as well is a site called Modular Grid. You can use this website to plan out your modular build. It will give you a rough estimate of how much everything is going to cost, and more importantly, it will tell you how much power all your modules are going to consume, so you can adjust your power supply accordingly. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and dislike.